Primetime News with Israel Lai.
Good evening, my name is Israel Lai, and this is Joy News at 8. In the headlines, President Mahama's nomination so far points to a pattern of realignment of ministries. But how necessary are these realignments? Meanwhile, inside newspaper editor Kwesi Pratt has sharply criticized the appointments, describing them as sloppy and fraught with confusion. The National Association of Graduate Teachers, NAGRAT, says it is not optimistic about a meeting it held with the Fair Wages Commission to trash out its salary concerns. All these and more coming up shortly. Now, in the first month of his administration, President John Mahama has embarked on what can be described as a major realignment of the various ministries. Question is, to what extent are the realignments necessary? Senior Policy Coordinator at the Presidency, Dr. Sule Gariba, says President Mahama is building a knowledge-based governance driven by evidence and delivery. But Vice President of Policy Think Tank Imani Ghana, Kwesi Bentel, says name changing does not necessarily lead to increase in productivity. He thinks there is a mere duplication of portfolios.
10 ministries have been realigned so far. For instance, social protection is highlighted under the Gender and Children Ministry, away from employment. Labor relations is now added to the Employment Ministry, and petroleum added to the Energy Ministry due to Ghana's oil exploration. The Fisheries and Aquaculture Ministry is the only new creation. Dr. Sule Gariba, Senior Policy Coordinator at the Presidency, says the 23 ministries, as pertained in the Mills administration, would be maintained. The realignment is a quest to recognize hitherto hidden areas of public concern and give them attention.
You go to the districts and you see social welfare officers who used to be the center stage of our development in the immediate past colonial era have been relegated to very, very miserable conditions. But unlike the previous Ministry of Women and Children, this ministry will now have the financial wherewithal to address social protection issues. There would be dossiers for each ministry outlining what the president wants them to deliver, so that it will not be business as usual.
Kofi Bento says this is an obvious expectation, but much more is required to make an impact.
Changes of names of ministries have happened in every administration, and it has not necessarily led to, real shift in terms of productivity, in terms of what is delivered under that particular portfolio. When I talk about realignment in the paradigm, a shift in the way things are done. Gender and social protection and all those things, I think is very wide.
A delivery unit is to be set up at the Presidency to track performance of the various ministries. Imani says to be effective, the tracker must be made public so the electorate can follow and judge. Citing the Information and Media Relations Ministry, Kofi Bentel says the realignment smack of duplication, which will eventually lead to delays in productivity.
The levels of productivity within the government sector must go up. We think that we've created many ministries, and sometimes the impression comes across as if we create these things just to create jobs. If you talk about Ministry of Information, as far as I'm concerned, with all due respect, I don't know what job they have to do when it comes to producing information, especially when you have the presidency with its own information wing. If you talk about media relations in terms of what? The last time we had a situation where they were distributing hampers. I see so many layers of duplication.
Another critical aspect of these realignments is cost.
These ministries cost money. Each ministry that you create must have a minister, a deputy minister, a chief director, directors, a whole host of things that come with just creating a ministry. Already we've increased the size of parliament. We think the cost of governance itself should be something that should be looked at.
It is giving political impetus and leadership to what already exists. So the cost is either minimal or in fact negligible. President Mahama has charged that even with the current ministry, they should look carefully at serious cost-cutting measures.
Like Imani says, it is not too early to determine the governance direction of a Mahama-led administration, although he has pulled up a couple of surprises. But it is yet early to determine the effectiveness of this modus operandi. The onus is at the step of government to provide evidence of better standards of living for the people. For Joy News, Gifty Ando Apia.
Well, managing editor of the Inside newspaper, Efrat Jr, has described President Mohammed's ministerial appointments as sloppy and fraught with confusion. He said it was a complete waste and questioned, among others, the reasoning behind the constitution of a three-member team made up of veteran MPs E.T. Mensah, Cletus Avoka and Alban Bagbin to superintend the execution of the president's priority projects. He spoke to my colleague Walalom Johnson, who first asked why such sharp criticism.
What accounted for those words, actually?
Nothing. I'm just a public commentator making public space. And I'm saying that the appointments the president has made so far are sending some indications that are unhealthy. First of all, there are too many persons appointed to be hanging around the presidency as ministers of state. The public raised issues with what they will be doing in the castle. Then the president's office issues statements assigning ministerial responsibilities to them. You know, responsibilities which are normally the responsibilities of some of the established ministries and so on. What does that say for coordination? What does that say for cohesion in government and so on? Those are legitimate issues that I'm raising, you understand? Beyond that, we also have three wise men who have been appointed by the president. You have Mr. E.T. Mensah, you have Avoka, you have Alban Bagbin, who have been appointed as some kind of special aids. Their status is not defined. Again, they've been assigned responsibilities which normally should belong to ministries. Then you also have the situation in which president makes appointments. Even before the appointees have been vetted, he's making another reshuffle. What does that tell us all?
Is that some sort of thought and verification need to come to play when taking decisions for the country?
Well, I'm not in a position to tell him who and who to appoint or not to appoint. But if he's going to appoint people into such responsible positions and so on, he needs to check their background. He needs to do his work so well that when the appointments are made, we can all have confidence that the things about those persons have been checked properly. As it were, we are all in doubt. Nobody knows why he decided to do the reshuffle. And the indications are that the issues may not have been properly considered before the appointments were announced. And that's worrying.
When I asked him if he was falling off with President Mahama, this is what he had to say.
I'm a citizen who makes comments like any other Ghanaian citizen. That's all. It's not about backing off or jumping in. It is clear, looking at what is happening with regards to appointment, that something is missing. There's no framework within which these appointments are being made. There appears to be some indecision. And the public has not been told what some of these appointees are going to do. And indeed, the very little information we have done paints a picture of confusion at the center. And that's all I'm saying. Do I have to be NDC or non-NDC or anti-NDC to be able to make this simple analysis?
I also asked him what he made of the future of Mahama's government.
I do hope that we'll do everything possible to ensure that the defective structures we have at the moment continue to work, at some reasonable level and so on. What is happening now is worrying.
A senior research fellow with think tank IDEG, Dr. Percy Jonah, is cautioning the NPP about some recent pronouncements it says could negatively affect the party. Amongst them is the decision to boycott the upcoming parliamentary by-elections in Akachi and Buem because of its pending dispute with the Electoral Commission at the Supreme Court. NPP members of parliament also say they will boycott the vetting of the president's nominees for ministerial appointments, which begin tomorrow. Dr. Jonah, however, is of the view the party could be shooting itself in the foot.
Current affairs show PM Express, Dr. Percy Jonah said it is not good for a major political party to refuse to participate in important. Their participation will benefit the people of Ghana.
I don't think it is right. I don't understand why we should just refuse to participate in crucial political processes that will be in the interest of democracy in general and the people who elected you in particular. It is not even good for the image of the party to refuse, because participating in the vetting process will benefit all Ghanaians.
Deputy Minority Leader in Parliament Dominic Nitiwu disagreed with Dr. Jonah's assertion.
We have stated our principle, and our principle is very clear. Any decision that would not last when the president ceases to be president by the decision of the Supreme Court, we will kindly decline to participate in that. But any decision that will traverse or will last beyond the president's mandate, I think that it is in the interest of the people of Ghana.
A statement issued Sunday afternoon also said, until further notice, the MPP will not participate in future elections conducted by the Electoral Commission. But Dr. Percy Jonah has cautioned the MPP that in politics it is a win or loss, and boycotting the election for these reasons amount to throwing an opportunity in the drain.
What would be good if the MPP decided to participate is that it gives you the opportunity to mobilize whatever few supporters you have. Everybody knows that you're not going to win the Akati seat. But the MPP supporters in the Akati constituency are then mobilized to rally around their candidates. Their spirits are high, they keep the party flag flying, and so on and so forth. It doesn't matter whether you get 10% or 12%. But it becomes the election, the by-election itself then becomes a rallying point for the MPP to do some kind of mobilization in that constituency.
The Akachi South seat became vacant following the election of Edward Doe Ajaho as Speaker of Parliament, while that of Buem followed the death of Henry Ford Camel, who was also the Volta Regional Minister.
We have more stories coming up. Don't go away. Now, it is very possible that beneficiaries of judgment debt payments, which generated so much controversy in recent times, may have been paid twice. That was the submission made by Solicitor General at the Attorney General's Department, Ama Ebuakwa Gezi, when she appeared before the Commission of Inquiry set up to investigate inordinate payments from government funds. She blamed the situation on the lack of feedback on the disbursement from the Controller and Accountant General's Office and the Ministry of Finance and Economic Planning.
Ama Ebuakwa Gezi was unable to present documents pertaining to the payments of judgment debts since 1992, as requested by the Commission of Inquiry when she was summoned to the Commission last year. When she appeared before the Commission today, she tendered in evidence, what she called a table of judgment debts from 1992 to 2012, with suit numbers and copies of letters to the AG's office authorizing payments from 1992. She asked for more time to produce the other documents requested by the Commission, as her team was still compiling documents leading to judgment debts. She told the Commission her outfit had not received feedback and the lack of coordination might have led to double payment of some of the judgment debt. She made some suggestions to forestall some of the problems of double payments.
Whether an amount had been paid or not, once we send the letter, we close our files and that's it. There's even a case now where we are not sure whether the amount was paid or not. It went back years ago, and the principal state claimed he had finished with it. We have no records that we authorized finance to pay, and yet it's like he was paid, so we are now dealing with that issue. So it could result in a double payment. Yeah. There's the need for coordination. I agree that there is the need. We've always looked at it that we deal with the law. Once we finish and it's gone, that's it.
The sole commissioner, Justice Yawa Pao, said the poor culture of record-keeping in the country was hindering the work of the Commission and assured that with the necessary cooperation from stakeholders, the Commission would surely make way.
The fact that we are not getting many witnesses here does not mean that the Commission's work is, going at a snail's pace, because I was told one station reported that the Commission's work is going at a snail's pace, and that it appears people are not cooperating. And I have to assure you and the Ghanaians that all the stakeholders are cooperating. A very difficult exercise. Record keeping in the country is very poor. Very poor. And it is because of the poor nature of our record keeping that is giving us some of these petty or seeming problems. And I'm sure we shall surmount them. We have capable investigators who are helping us to unearth some of these things. So I want the media to know that we are getting the necessary support.
A group calling itself Let My Vote Count Alliance has accused outgoing Finance Minister Dr. Kwabena Dufo of misappropriating state funds to aid the NDC's campaign towards the 2012 elections.
How come 400 million Ghana cedis of unbudgeted funds were disbursed from Ghana government treasury in the last couple of months to the election? Dr. Kwabena Dufo must provide some answers which we don't expect to be contained in his handing over notes anyways. Our investigation is showing that nearly $500 million Ghana cedis was spent to buy the votes in the last month's election, and we will prove to Ghanaians how.
They describe themselves as multi-partisan and non-partisan. This rainbow coalition of concerned citizens hope to protect the freedom, justice, the integrity of elections and democracy in Ghana.
The enemies of democracy say we should accept that irregularity because it's happened in every election since 1992. We say no to that. Not this many, not this gargantuan proportion, not 1.3 million of them. Not 1 in every 8 votes counted.
They also questioned the credibility of the Electoral Commission and accused governments of shielding corrupt practices at the Electoral Commission.
We were shocked, dismayed, and disappointed to see that Ghana, a country described as a beacon of hope for Africa, could have so many flaws in its electoral process, flaws that go to the marrow of the integrity of the very elections that represents the bone of our democracy. For so long, the nation has shielded the Electoral Commission and accepted their corruption and incompetence as a way of life, per their own admission.
They are also calling for reforms at the Electoral Commission.
Irregularities cannot be allowed to choose our president for us. No way. In this election, President John Mahama supposedly crossed the 50% mark with some 150,000 votes. How can we sit back as the EC substitutes about 9 times of that irregularities for our real votes? When illegitimate votes are declared, the value of our real votes is cheapened and reduced to nothingness.
The group urged Ghanaians not to substitute justice for convenience.
The Supreme Court has thrown out a case brought before it by 2 members of the NDC challenging the purchase of a state bungalow by New Patriotic Party Chairman Jake Obechabi-Lamte. Former Deputy Information Minister Samuel Kujetu Ablakwa and Minister-designate for Communications Edward Omane-Boama had petitioned the Supreme Court to take back the bungalow the MPP chairman acquired in 2007. They claim the purchase of the bungalow was an abuse of the powers of a public officer. Last few weeks have seen some extensive lobbying by persons seeking to be named in President Mahama's cabinet. Some former ministers, at least from the latest nominations, appear to have been sidelined for new appointees, including technocrats who are fairly unknown in the political sphere. How will they maneuver the relatively rocky terrain to deliver on their mandates? Gifty Ando Apia has some answers.
President Mahama wants to undertake policy that is evidence-based, and therefore the character of the initial team mirrors that expectation that he wants his policies to be based on evidence. All of this is meant to allow the presidency to bring out coherent policies, to provide leadership, and undertake authoritative decisions.
Party supporters minced no words in expressing their displeasure when expected names did not surface in the first batch of appointment. Subsequently, more new faces were introduced. Dr. Henry Seydou Dana, Minister Designate for Chieftaincy and Traditional Affairs, Dr. Raymond Atuguba, was also appointed the Executive Secretary to the Presidency. Professor Nana Opoku-Agyeman is designated for the Education Ministry, and the human rights activist Nana Oyeletha, known for criticizing government action, has also been included in governance at the Gender, Children and Social Protection Ministry. Politics is said to be a game described in many words, dangerous and dirty being the most common. Do these technocrats have the political wherewithal to play this game and survive unscathed?
They probably don't, and that includes myself. All the technocrats are doing is, for the first time, providing the tools and the evidence basis. All the ministers, well, most of them are politicians. So, of course, they are directing this, and they're doing the political aspect.
It's a good sign that the president is picking maybe technocrats or people who he perceives to be knowledgeable people instead of just politicians. But I first appreciate that when it comes to ministerial positions, we are not necessarily, talking about having only technocrats to fill those positions. Those are political positions. So for me, placing a technocrat at the top does not necessarily mean much. Again, I would say let us wait.
What about the notion that, as critical as some of them are, their inclusion is a way of silencing them?
We don't know, but politicians are politicians. They do what is in their best interest. And one of the things that works for them is to silence people who they perceive to be their critics. And this is a very good way to do it. But again, I'll give them the benefit of the doubt. I know Nana Oye. She's an activist. She wants things done. So she's one of those people who I don't think is going to go there and be too bogged down in the administration and all those other things. I think she'll be more outgoing to try and really get things done. It might be very good for all of us. But sometimes, too, activism is different from running a ministry or be a minister. So there is no guarantee that Nana Oye, for instance, is going to succeed. But I wish her well. And I think that the president coming in to bring people who are on the field doing these things is a good sign. It gives me the impression that he wants things really done.
How will the work of Professor Nana Opoku-Agyeman, for instance, interplay with that of E.T. Mensah, who is to handle the president's priority educational project?
What is the power of that person, vis-a-vis the power of the minister? Are we taking that whole thing out of the hands of the minister? And whose word is law? Who has first call on resources? Who has the final decision-making power concerning these things? These things need to be ironed out.
What about the ministers of state at the presidency?
Ministers of state have been assigned to clusters of these responsibilities that the president has to deliver. It is not like Ministry of Agri or Ministry of Health. These are all agencies under the presidency. So you have public sector reform being handled by a Minister of State. You have private sector development being handled by a Minister of State. There is required.
I respectfully disagree with him in terms of the need for that. Each of them has given some kind of portfolio, some for financial services, some for other things, all of which belong in one other ministry, or a ministry or the other.
Imani Ghana thinks the presence of technocrats in governance is a good attempt, but not a guarantee for success. For now, though, the disposition is to give benefit of doubt as time determines the success of the technocratic inclusion in governance. Gifty Andoapia for Joy News.
Now, with the backdrop of a threat by NAGRA to embark on a strike indefinitely if its grievances over pay are not resolved by January 25, it has been in a meeting with the Fair Wages and Salaries Commission. Its President Christian Adaipoku, however, says they are not so optimistic about the outcome of the meeting.
What is significant here is that National Labour Commission is not our employer, and therefore if National Labour Commission invites you, there's no hope that that will be an end to the problem. Probably they will listen to the problem, try to call on the employer to deal with the problem, but it doesn't end there. What is important is that people must come to understand and appreciate that there are problems which have been lingering for the past 2 years, and of which NAGRA has used every legitimate means, writing letters, asking for meetings, lobbying of people in authority to get these issues resolved, but without success. The incremental credit has been stopped unilaterally by the employer without any negotiation. Vehicle maintenance allowance is something that every public sector worker enjoys. We have been enjoying it all over the years. But the whole of last year, 12 months, not a peso was paid. We talk about categories 2 and 3 allowances, and I'm so sad about the way Fair Wages and Salaries Commission has gone about the issue. They are supposed to sit down and think about righting the wrong that they have perpetuated over the past 3 years against teachers. We're talking about only 2% of the entire public sector workers who have not been migrated. So should the 2% hold some of us? I mean, GES workers alone form almost 50% of the workers. And these are the people who are disadvantaged when it comes to allowances. It is really sad that instead of trying to quell the fire, they are jumping from radio station to radio station, TV station to TV station, rather stoking the fire. I just want to send a message clear that teachers are ready. We are angry because we have seen the pay slips of all other public sector workers.
Now, the vetting of the 23 ministerial nominees is expected to begin tomorrow at the State House. The Appointment Committee of Parliament will, on the 24th and 25th of January, vet the six of the President John Mahama's nominees for ministerial appointment. The Deputy Clerk to Parliament, Alhaji Ibrahim Gombila, in a statement named the nominees as Seth Tekpe for Finance and Economic Planning, Ms. Hannah Tete, Foreign Affairs and Regional Integration, Alhaji Collins Dauda for Water Resources, Works and Housing, and Clement Kofi Humado for the Ministry of Agriculture. The rest are Alhaji A.B. Inusa Fusaini, Lands and Natural Resources, and Alhaji Amin Amidu Suleimani, Roads and Highways. According to the announcement, the vetting will commence at 10 a.m. on both days at the Speaker's Conference Room. Next up, we'll bring you the business news. The prices of goods and services on the Ghanaian market witnessed an increase following a 17.1% upward adjustment in the producer price index, which is the rate at which manufacturers sell their goods and services to retailers. According to the Ghana Statistical Service, there were significant increases in the price of electricity, the exchange rate, and production in the mining and quarry sector in December last year. This necessitated an overall increase in the prices of goods and services.
The year-on-year inflation in ex-factory prices of goods and services was 17.1%. That is, ex-factory prices of goods for all industry increased on average by 17.1% in December 2012, relative to the price level recorded in December 2011. The monthly change rate was negative 0.4%. This means that compared to November 2012, the PPI decreased by 0.4% in December 2012.
The manufacture of textiles in the country still continues to record. The sector recorded a whopping 40.1%, followed by the publishing and printing sectors, which also recorded an annual average of 37.3%. According to Dr. Bawade, acting government statistician for technical support at the Ghana Statistical Service, production increases in the mining and quarrying sectors have largely contributed to the overall rate of the producer price index.
5 major groups in manufacturing recorded inflation rates above the sector average of 19.3 in December. And these were manufacture of textiles, publishing, production of recorded materials, then the manufacture of other non-metallic mineral products, manufacture of fabricated metal products, and manufacture of food products and beverages.
The month-on-month change in producer prices between November and December 2012 witnessed a downward trend of negative 0.4%. On sector-by-sector analysis, the December 2012 producer price inflation in the mining and quarrying increased by 8.0% over the November rate of 19.6%. Other subsectors, such as the manufacturing and utilities, increased slightly to 19.3% and 1.4% lower than that of November 2012.
In the inflation rate for mining and quarrying, from 19.6% in November 2012 to 27.6% in December 2012. There was also slight increase in the rate for manufacturing from 19.0 to 19.3, and these two sectors actually propelled the rate that we see for December 2012.
Meanwhile, the petroleum sector was characterized by few declines, but was fairly stable on 16.0%.
The Chief Executive Officer of the National Pensions Regulatory Authority, Sam Piale, has cleared the air on issues raised about statements of accounts released so far. There were concerns the number of months and rate of returns on contributions were less than expected. He was speaking to Joy Business in an exclusive interview after inaugurating a committee of media practitioners to champion the cause of pensioners in the country.
Contributors who received their pension statements during the latter part of 2012 were unhappy. 18 months were captured on their statements instead of the expected 32 months. Mr. Sampiali explained why.
In the investment cycle, we do things periodically. We wanted to give statements to cover a certain period because we receive reports, contribution data from sources like SNET. Now, so those that were available is what we computed and issued it out there. Remember, it was termed provisional statement. You know, at that time, some of the investment had not matured, and therefore the returns could not have been added. You know, so we intend that the trustees that are being registered, they would issue the second statement, second section of the statement to cover December, in which every employee will see the full coverage of his contribution and that of his interest.
Another registered disappointment by contributors was the fact that the Treasury bill rate, which was expected to be used to calculate returns, was below 3% and less than what was expected.
Some investment which your money has been put in had not matured, so we could not use that to compute your interest. You know, so that report is not a true representation of our full disclosure of what the persons have. We time that to the maturity period of our investment. You know, some investment are 90 days and then it's reinvested as the case may be. You know, so I'm not sure that any worker would lose anything. What the worker will lose perhaps is his contribution towards the payment of the fund administrators, those who have been keeping the records and everything. But religiously we have been investing not in only in treasury bills, and we have been securing the interest rate as the government rate should be.
The National Pensions Regulatory Authority has inaugurated a section of media practitioners to champion the cause of pensioners in the country. Joy FM's business producer Emmanuel Ejay was selected as the first president of the committee.
The International Monetary Fund's IMF's Deputy Director General has said the financial industry still has a long way to go to fix itself. Min Zhu told bankers at the World Economic